Hello, I'm Super Orange Cat here, and today with another Toonami news update. Now, there hasn't been too much in terms of Toonami news this past week, most notably because of the fact that I've mentioned a couple times, I think I mentioned it in the last Downward Spiral video, the fact that the ratings have not been out as of late, and that is because the main site that reports them, Showbuzz Daily, had some form of outage. It's unknown if this was some type of hacking or some otherwise issue, but the website's down, and the version that's actually up, if you look up Showbuzz Daily right now, is an archived version from like a week from like the day before it got hacked down, and nothing can get added at this point. So we're at a piece here, and here's a tweet from the person who's more or less, I think, in charge of Showbuzz Daily, basically saying here that they can't add content. This is a little old, a few days old. They can't add content. They'll hope to do content soon, but as of now, we're in a stay still. And the reason why this is important to Toonami is because this is the only site that has actively been reporting Toonami ratings. Other rating sites, most notably Programming Insider, are way behind, like literally weeks behind in terms of ratings. So even if I get them from there, they'll be extremely dated. And I've looked at other alternatives as well, but none of them look like they're really that good or reported that often. So we're kind of stuck in the standstill here. So for the time being, there are going to be no ratings, which is going to be interesting to see because that means that every schedule move we'll get from Toonami is going to seem kind of like a shot in the dark. We're not going to have any numerical basis to really understand why it was made. But again, I think we're still a few weeks away from an outright news show being to the block. I think the next slot that comes up is The Promised Neverland. Not 100% sure on that. I think so. And speaking of new shows to the block, we also had Black Clover get an announcement a few days ago that season 4 will be airing starting on June 19th. I thought this was interesting because usually when they do these outright big announcements, it's because there's a new show coming to the block or a show's coming back to the block. But Black Clover is currently on the block right now, which makes this announcement pretty interesting. Before this announcement, I thought there was no question about season 4 being on Toonami. I thought that was a given. That's why I haven't been talking about Black Clover that much lately because it's kind of in cruise control right now. It's going to be in the block until they run out of episodes. Until people pointed to me the fact that Funimation is still incredibly slow dubbing Black Clover, like an episode every 3 weeks or so. And the buffer of episodes we were able to accumulate with Black Clover being off the air for basically most this winter is mostly dissipated now. So interesting. I guess this is kind of a reaffirmation that Black Clover is not going anywhere. Don't worry about the fact we're kind of running out of dubbed episodes. And again, at the same time, I wasn't even anticipating a announcement on this. So it was kind of interesting that it was worthy enough for them to take their time out to put on their Facebook page because really, why is Toonami's main outreach Facebook? Facebook's dead. But at the same time though, pretty interesting to see. I guess for Black Clover fans, this is good. Kind of a reaffirmation that it's gonna still be on the block for the time being. Speaking of shows on the block, we got an announcement that there will be a Lupin the Third Part 6 being made. Clearly, this has not yet been announced from Toonami, but since the last, I believe, 3 parts of Lupin the Third have aired on Toonami, it's kind of just a given at this point that when Lupin the Third Part 6 gets ready, when it gets dubbed, it will probably end up on Toonami in some form. And you can make the argument that maybe it won't happen because the fact that Lupin the Third in general, especially Part 5, had very poor ratings. But at the same time, Toonami has stated numerous times in the past that simply having low ratings they don't care about ratings. So basically, the fact it has low ratings probably will have no bearing on that. And I think that if Toonami still exists whenever this anime gets produced, gets dubbed, I think it's more or less a slam dunk. It will probably take the 3:30 slot of Toonami, or at least it'll be the last new premiere on the block. And this is not necessarily Toonami related news, but one more thing I kind of want to go into is Dragon Con. Now, one of the biggest tragedies in the anime industry in 2020 was the general fact that anime cons got shut down. And it could be like, well, it's just a fun event for people, but there's a lot of people, especially people who run booths at these events, they lost a pretty big source of their income this past year, and they've struggled to really get by because, I mean, even with the virtual con experiences that Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con did last year, Anime Expo did last year, among other uh, anime cons had, it really doesn't really allow an opportunity for vendors to sell stuff, you know? And if you go to these conventions, you're going to see booths and booths of people, independent people who rent out space there to sell stuff, you know? And one thing I wanted to point out is Dragon Con, as of now, which is set for Labor Day weekend 2021, is set to be in person. And this is, there might have been another announcement of a show that not a show of a convention that's going to be in person before this, but I haven't seen it. And I find this to be interesting considering that this convention is held in Atlanta every year. And one thing notable about Atlanta is that that is where Adult Swim and Toonami are headquartered. So it's kind of a long shot, maybe a bit of a stretch for me to say, but possibly this is an opportunity for them to give announcements, you know? And this is going to be early September, so at this, maybe this is still far flung because it might not happen. Maybe we get an announcement about when Uzumaki airs, maybe more information about Black Lotus. I think by then, Fina Pirate Princess will have aired on the block, so there won't be information on that. Maybe information on Shenmue, which I think everyone's kind of forgotten has been announced. But again, still far in the future, things can change. But that's just a general showing of maybe things getting generally better with conventions being in person. There's also going to be a virtual component to this convention as well. They haven't given that many details about it, but again, Dragon Con, Labor Day weekend in Atlanta, Georgia. As far as I'm aware, the first in-person convention currently scheduled. What do you guys think? What's your thoughts about the news from this past week on Toonami? What are your thoughts and opinions? What shows do you like to see on the block? What's your thoughts on Black Clover? What's your thoughts on Lupin III? I like reading them. If you like this content, if you want more wacky Toonami news content like this, please like, comment, and subscribe. I'm the Super Orange Cat, and that is all.